Good evening, it's just gone 7 o'clock. It is obviously Friday night, and you are tuned to the football pitch here live on YouTube. As my wee banner says, go ahead, like, subscribe, tell your pals. It does help us out a lot. So they tell me anyway, you know what I mean? I'm still waiting to see if that algorithm will kick in, but hey, never know. I'll mention Taylor Swift, I'll mention Travis Kelce. I'll see if that gets us any more on the algorithm. Tonight we're going to be talking English Premier League. There you go, that'll get us something as well. Maybe even a bit of fantasy sports as well. And we're joined in the company of Tom House, hopefully Steve Hitchens, Spurs fan, because we're going to be looking ahead to Manchester United, his visit to White Hart Lane tomorrow. And we're also joined by Ian Harrison, Aberdeen Cove Rangers, golfer, everything else. Obviously tonight we don't have any Dennis. Dennis has decided he's wanting to pop out. He is the entertainer at one of the Christmas parties tonight. He is, I'm led to believe, the stripper at a female's party somewhere in deepest darkest St Andrews or something like that. I'm sure we'll hear you'll hear all about it next week. I won't be, because I'm having the night off next week, but we'll be discussing that later on. But as I say, I've rambled on for far too long. All that remains to be seen is saying hello to the two guys that have joined us so far. Number one at the top of to the right-hand side of me is Ian Harrison. Ian, how are we doing?
Yeah, we're doing fine, thank you. Yeah.
Good. If you've been looking for Dennis, obviously, I think he's at a party, as I say, somewhere, entertainment or something like that, up St Andrews Way, I'm led to believe, you know.
Kilmacombe, I believe, is where he is.
Kilmacombe, that's what it is. That's the other end of the country.
Is that that's almost in England, isn't it?
Well, that's it, exactly, yeah. Port Glasgow, Greenock, somewhere. It as well been in England, you know what I mean? So there we are. We're also joined by Tom House. Tom, good evening, how are we?
Hi, Cammy, yeah, all good, thank you.
Proud this week to be your Manchester United top. I know the last time we spoke, it was negatives all day long, but Manchester United, the form this season, certainly been a massive upturn for your team at Old Trafford this season, and starting to get some results as well now.
Yeah, it's more positive than last time I was on, which I think was nearer the start of this year, and it was do we stick with Amorim and the experiment? So I think we're not out of the woods. We seem to have turned a bit of a corner. We still need to put that into some results in the coming weeks, because the fixtures look fairly favourable after tomorrow away at Spurs. Hopefully by Christmas I'll be pretty happy.
Yeah, indeed. Well, as I say, the form this season, you've already beaten Liverpool quite convincingly, actually, even though the scoreline was only 2-1. Last week's result as well, I think was a massive turning point as well, because if I remember, Manchester United this season, or the last few seasons, have struggled against Brighton, but that was quite a comfortable victory as well.
Yeah, no, it was good against Brighton. I think we the big changes were creating a lot of chances. I think over the last 2 or 3 years, we just look like we're begging to get a goal from anywhere, and if it wasn't Fernandes producing, we weren't going to score. But now with Mbeumo and Cunha coming in, it looks like we've got options, and we're creating a lot more chances now. I think we're still lacking that clinical goal scorer. We'll see if the new lad comes good in Sesko in time. He looks like a tidy enough player, but he's just not got on the score sheet as often as we'd like. But we're creating chances to score goals, which has got to be. It just gives you a chance to win games when we weren't doing that. You know, I think last week against Forest, it's sloppy defensively. He's conceding 2 goals in 2 minutes. It was really poor. But having said that, I think they're the games we would have lost last season and the season before. We would have went on to lose that 2-1 or 3-1. We came back into that and probably should have won it at the death. I think that's the difference. It looks, it's not the finished article, but it's a lot better than it was.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the new signings here, and Bueno, and obviously Cunha. The one thing for me that Manchester United did this season that they haven't done previously is they've gone out and brought in players with Premier League experience, rather than going out with obviously the Premier League. They really have this season almost seem to have a transfer policy that made sense. And in previous years, Manchester United's transfer policy just said, right, let's see who we can bring in. If we can get him, we'll bring him in. Doesn't matter where he plays. We'll overload the midfield. We'll bring in players just for the sake of bringing them in. But Mbeumo, quality, absolute outstanding quality at Brentford. Cunha at Wolves, something of a surprise signing to me. And obviously, it's took a wee while to find his feet, took a while to get his first goal. But now that he's done that, I think Manchester United will reap the benefits, and certainly Cunha's reaping the benefits of being away from Wolves for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah, that's for sure. I think they're both good players. I think I was quite surprised to see them both come in. I thought it'd be one or the other when they were rumoured in the summer. But both good players, very different players. I think you're right what you say. I think under Ferguson all those years ago, I know United fans always hark back to that, but United bought the best talent from the Premier League. Michael Carrick, you go all the way back to Andy Cole, players like that, and I think you're right. We've brought in Premier League experience, and they've been able to impact the team quickly rather than waiting 6 months. And that's a big thing.
Yeah, indeed.
I would
Ian, do you get to watch
say,
much Premier League football?
Yeah, I did, and probably the thing that's impressed me as much as anything is the guy they've got between the sticks now.
Yeah,
I think the goalkeeper now gives the players in front of him a bit of confidence. I think the back four part of the blame for them panicking was that they had no faith in the guy behind them. So he seems to be doing a good job. Okay, there's going to be errors. He's young, but to put somebody that young in between the sticks, like Man United, it takes a lot. So he looks the article. To be fair, he's not finished by any means, but he looks pretty good.
No, he does. I think you're right, and he's I think they've gone back to an old-fashioned goalkeeper. He's not flamboyant. He saves shots and clears the ball. Which is what you want your goalkeeper to do.
And he's not scared to put his foot through it.
No,
and
he's
just
not.
Get it out of his box rather than pass it 6 yards into somebody's path. He just puts the ball in the butt of the net. So there's times when you really do just need to put it up front. And then you've got now, as you said, you've got two players up front where if you can get the ball to them somewhere between their neck and their ankles, they can hold it up. They can bring players in, and I would say they look pretty good. I'm still thinking they need somebody with a right bit of class in the middle of the park.
100%.
I think that's the one thing that they're missing. But as you say, strikers is trying to find one that's on form and is really going to work for you. It's difficult.
I think you're absolutely right, Ian, about the middle of the park. I think our best team still includes Casemiro, and his legs went 2 years ago. He's playing well this season. The system seems to suit him better than the older system with more players around him. He doesn't seem to have to cover as much ground. But we need him in the team because of his qualities. I look at the other Premier League teams and teams around Europe who are successful. All the best teams have top quality defensive midfielders. Look at the difference when Rodri doesn't play, if Declan Rice doesn't play, when Caicedo doesn't play for Chelsea. I think Gravenberch has been highlighted this season. Now he's come back. Liverpool look a different team. He missed 5 or 6 games. It's all the games where they struggled. And our player in that position's 32, I believe. Casemiro is.
Yeah.
Not getting any younger. I was sort of surprised we went for the centre forward in Sesko and didn't spend that money on a central midfielder. I mean, I like the lad Wharton at Palace. I think he's as close to Michael Carrick as we've had in the Premier League since Carrick went. I think he can put his foot in, but he's hellish good on the ball. I'd love to see us go after him in January.
Yeah, thing is,
I would agree with you there.
Really
I was surprised he didn't move on. Yeah.
I mean,
I agree.
Palace, to come on to them, I mean, obviously we were going to talk Man United, Spurs, but Palace, the form that they've been in this season has been nothing short of sensational. As I say, I think it was 8 or 9 games in before they lost their first game to Everton. But as I say, their form has been sensational, Tom. And I mean, as you say, if you can get somebody for there at all, as we were saying before we came on here, I've got Gay in my fantasy team, And he's getting me 20 points every week, you know. I mean, he's just outstanding. And you look at the two forwards, Mateta up front and the lad alongside him. Palace, to me, look as though they could be a side that really, really push towards the top four. They could be the Forest this season.
I agree. I think if they can manage Europe as well as, because obviously we're playing again in Europe last night, but they've got a great team. I've got 3 of their players in my fantasy team, so I really obviously rate them. But they're, that Mateta's a proper old-fashioned centre forward, decent player, but big, strong lad, and that Ismail Assar who plays alongside him. Scored 2 last night. I remember him at Watford, and when he was at Watford, he was linked with Liverpool, and I really could see that even as a young player. And he went away, and I can't remember where he went to play, but came, and obviously now he's showing his real class at Palace. But they're a proper team, well drilled. They all know their role, and I really like the fullbacks as well, Mitchell and Munoz. I think they're both excellent players.
Yeah, but Munoz is another one I've got. I think I've got him on the bench in my fantasy team, and as I say, it's just, and they're good to watch. That's the thing. I mean, you saw them last night, as you say, in Europe. They looked really, really good last night. That's for sure. Thoroughly deserved the victory. Could have been and should have been more. But Lassar, as you say, with a double. I mean, Palace to me look to be dark horses in the Premier League, as I say, to push towards top four. And certainly, if they don't win a trophy this season, and let's be fair, lightning very rarely strikes twice. In terms of getting into Europe, I can see them getting into Europe through the league this season for sure. If not top four, certainly top 6. And again, they're a great side to watch. But looking ahead to tomorrow, Tom, as you say, the last time we spoke was prior to the Cup Winners' Cup, the Europa League, whatever the hell it was called. You didn't win it, so it doesn't really matter what it was called.
Well, it was the worst game in history, wasn't it? Let's be honest. It was
freaking appalling.
It was an atrocious advert for English football.
Yeah. The only thing that compares with that over the last few seasons was the first Rangers Celtic game this season. But hey, that
is true.
The less said about that one, the better as well. But as I say, you were on. That's when we had you and Steve did make an appearance that night to come in and talk, obviously, about and give us a preview, which probably actually turned out to be more exciting than the game. Tomorrow, it's on the back of last week's draw against Forest. Going into that game tomorrow, Spurs obviously on a high at long last, getting a victory in the Champions League this season, and an outstanding performance. But how do you feel about going down to White Hart Lane for that one tomorrow?
I think it all depends which Spurs turn up. They seem to be hot and cold this season. I mean, I watched the game against Chelsea last week, and they were abject. I don't think they're the shot on target. Home game against another London club, a derby match. 2 of the old so-called Big Six, although I don't think that exists anymore. It should have been a real game they were up for, and they were really poor. But like I say, they were really good in midweek. We could do without Van der Ven doing what he did in midweek, because that was phenomenal. Just electric for a centre back to be able to do that. Run at pace with the ball. We talked briefly before we came on. To run at pace is one thing. To run at pace with the ball is a whole different skill. And to do that as a centre back and then have the finish at the end of it, of course. There's a lot of centre backs who might have got there and stuffed that over the bar, but I don't fancy seeing that too much tomorrow. But I'm hopeful. I think the way we set up might suit that game, and I think in Cunha and Mbeumo, I think we've got opportunities to score goals. So I'm early prediction is 3-1 United. That's what I'm going.
A good result, Ian. You'll be watching that game tomorrow. Obviously, it's the live game on TV at 12:30.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I do agree. It could go either way. I can't see. I think there's no way that the Spurs are going to go without conceding goals. That is still a problem. But up front, they're still relying on non-forwards scoring goals for them. If you look at their top scorers, I think they're either midfield or defenders. So that is still a problem that they're having. The loss, obviously years ago, Harry Kane, he's never been replaced properly, and Song okay, he was injured a lot last season, so he didn't play a big part. But they like every other team, they've got quite a few players on the bench that probably can come on and do something. But to me, I look at the bench and think there's not a lot there, to be honest. I mean, they have got players that can turn it, but I don't think so. So I'll go for a draw on that one, I would say.
Yeah, I must admit, I fancy United tomorrow. I think Spurs had a nice bounce back early season. Frank came in. They looked decent the first 3 or 4 games of the season, but since then they really have kind of drifted off a wee bit. And as you say, when you're relying on a centre half to do what he did on Wednesday night, in Europe, because you don't have a forward line. Dominic Solanke flatters to deceive at times, Richarlison, you don't know what you're getting with him either. And I think that's the problem Spurs have got up top, is they have no consistency. You don't a guy who's going to get you maybe 15 goals a season. Johnson looks decent in games, and he can maybe pop in, but he's young. He's still trying to find his feet. And as I say, they definitely do. As you say, Ian, Harry Kane's never been replaced. And yeah, I just don't see where. I know last season, Tom, they did you in the league, and I mean, you were 3-0 down before you could blink.
Yeah.
But this game tomorrow, I really don't see. I don't see you losing tomorrow. At the very worst, a draw. But I think you guys have got goals. Spurs are struggling, and they're not that great at the back. They can lose goals. So yeah, I mean, I think. And Bueno up against his former gaffer as well for the first time. He'll want to prove a point, because there was a lot of talk he wanted to go to Spurs early doors. Yep. So yeah, I mean, I do fancy United tomorrow to go down to London and get a result.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head with Spurs. They just look a bit short up top. I think they're missing a bit of creativity with Maddison being out all season. I don't know where Kulusevski is in terms of his recovery. He's a player I really rate, the Swedish lad.
Yep.
Excellent player.
Yep.
And they just seem to. I've thought when I saw the lineups for the Chelsea game last week, they had about four at the back and then 5 defensive midfielders. And it's kind of like, well,
that's basically all that's left.
Yeah, where you're going to create from. So yeah. Look, they're still a threat. They're at home, they've still got a lot of good players in the team, but I'm pretty hopeful. I'm going in pretty hopeful.
Yeah, I think you should be. It must be good getting into these games again, because I mean, I know for the last 2 or 3 seasons you've been sitting there wondering what United side was going to turn up, and to me, Spurs are now a mirror image of what United were last season. Weak at the back. Okay, they've got a good keeper. They definitely have a good keeper on Vicario. I think he's decent. But beyond that, I think they do struggle with a bit of inconsistency. Van de Ven's quality. That his goal the other night proved that, and he definitely has quality. And I think with him and his team, but you can't be a one-man side, and you certainly can't be a one-man centre half side. So no, I mean, to me, Spurs are a wee bit short. If they stick with Thomas Frank, I'm pretty sure it'll come good. And there's absolutely no reason to suggest they're not sticking with Thomas Frank, but I think Thomas Frank will get them something. But I don't think that will start tomorrow, and definitely.
Yep.
I better not, because as I say,
yep.
I'm getting Bueno in the fantasy team. I've got Fernandes in my fantasy team as well, so no, definitely. I can't believe we're sitting here and I'm mentioning fantasy football about Christ knows how many times.
Yeah, no, well,
I think just on the back of that was that the Spurs back four are sort of mirroring what was going on at Liverpool. The one decent player out of 4 that knew what he was doing, and the other 3 are struggling a wee bit to fit in. As you say, like I said, Van Dijk couldn't do it all on his own, and they've seemed to have now got a more settled back 4. But we'll see how they go. But Spurs have still got a wee bit to go there.
Yeah, they certainly do. As I say, it started so well, but tomorrow, I think it's going to be a game too far, when you look at it. You look at other games tomorrow, only the 5 fixtures tomorrow in the Premier League, and only 2 of them at 3 o'clock kickoff. Fulham travelling up to Liverpool for the game against Everton. The other 3 o'clock kickoff, West Ham United. Now, who would have seen that one coming last week? West Ham against Burnley tomorrow. And then 5:30, the surprise package, probably even more so than Manchester United in the Premier League. Sunderland at home to Arsenal. And then Chelsea, an 8 o'clock kickoff on the TV against Wolves. Now, that's one game I think I'll give a miss tomorrow, but the two other games in telly look decent. Sunderland, Ian, you been impressed with them this season?
Yes, I watched the documentary from a few years ago when Sunderland were supposed to come bouncing straight back up.
Yeah, with Jack Ross as manager.
Nope. And the whole thing just crumbled. But there's some of the guys I worked offshore with. They were from Sunderland. So when you listen to them about the fan base that they have and the loyalty our fans have got, they are a club that can go and do things. Certainly with the support that they have. They've got a great stadium there, and it's just a case of building the right team. I mean, everything went against them when they sort of went into free fall, but they're back there. They're playing great. I think it's the ex-Marseille owner, Adidas owner's son, that is the chairman now. Is it? I think
I'll take your word for that one.
It's somewhere. There's a weirdness going on somewhere, but I'm sure he was ex-Marseille. Invested in Sunderland for whatever reason he did, but they seem to be doing really well. So they've got a team that they're playing for each other, which is great to see.
Yeah, and they're coming off a game last week as well, midweek, at home to Everton. 1-1 draw against Everton. They showed their fighting qualities in that, coming from behind to get the point anyway. When Everton actually looked quite settled in that and probably could have been 2 or 3 up. So there's a bit of fight there as well, about them. And I mean, you look, it's a wee bit of a resurgence on Tyneside. Newcastle, obviously, another side a wee bit hit and a miss, but getting good in Europe for sure. But I mean, Sunderland sitting top 6, Newcastle up there as well. Wee bit of resurgence up there in Tyneside, Tom.
Yeah, I think Sunderland are a big club. I think Sunderland are every bit as big as Newcastle as a football club. They've got the fan base, as Ian says, the stadium, and they're a proper old school football club with a rich history. I think the Premier League needed the promoted teams to do well this year. I think it was becoming almost looking like it was becoming too big a gap for promoted teams to come up and survive, and I think it needed the promoted teams to come up and do something. I think Burnley have been poor. Leeds have been in and out. They've looked pretty good in some games, and they got a bit of a humbling at Brighton last week. But they've been good in a lot of games I've watched them in. But Sunderland have been a revelation. So it shows you that you can bring a lot of players in, because I think they've brought a crazy amount of new faces in, and they've gelled quickly, and they look a threat. I thought they were excellent in the second half against Everton. After, as you say, Everton looked good in that first half, and I thought Sunderland did really well to fight back and play the way they did in the second half. So no, I think that won't be an easy game for Arsenal tomorrow. That won't be an easy game.
No, I mean, Arsenal obviously sitting quite firmly top, 6 points clear at the top of the Premier League, 6 points clear of Man City. Liverpool, 4 games lost straight on the bounce. They obviously put that right at the weekend with a victory against Aston Villa, which just put them back into third, ahead of Sunderland on goal difference. And then you get Bournemouth, and then you get Spurs, Chelsea, and yourselves, obviously. I mean, you really did suffer with that draw last week. Had it not been for that draw, you'd be sitting third just now ahead of Liverpool. But that draw has definitely done you last week, Tom.
It's so tight in there at the minute. I think there's 19 to 17 points covers about 7 places at the moment. It's every weekend's going to have a lot of fluctuation. So it's good to see though. It's tight. Hopefully Arsenal don't run away with it, but they've been impressive so far. You've got to say the solidity of the team, the way they defend. Yeah, they don't look like getting beat, do they? They don't look like conceding, let alone getting beat at the minute.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that they have looked good, and it's one of these things. It has to come together at some point because they have threatened over the last 3 or 4 seasons with Arteta there. Obviously took a season and a half to find his feet, but once he done that, they certainly have threatened in the past and either fallen off or just not quite made it. But I mean, six points clear. But you have to say Manchester City coming back a bit, Liverpool coming back. But you're right, that should be a really, really difficult game for them tomorrow up at the Stadium of Light.
And what do you make up? Because there's been quite a lot of chat south of the border about the style and, it's quite direct. They rely on set pieces. The fact long throws are now, every club's back to doing long throws in the Premier League. I personally, I like it. I think there's more than one way to skin a cat. I actually find the Man City Guardiola style football a bit, not now so much because they're a bit more gung-ho Man City now, but when they were really controlling games and went 1-0 up, I find that quite dull to watch. I find the set piece stuff and the long throws really enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean it's
a throwback to the good old days, isn't it?
That's where I was going. Yeah, exactly. It is, but it is almost back to British style football, or to English style football, when Graham Taylor was getting results at Watford, or at Wimbledon under the Crazy Gang and things like that. It's not quite to that extreme. It's certainly a bit more cultured than what that was, But I mean, I think it's good to watch it. I certainly far prefer that, as you say, to watching Manchester City where it's pass for the sake of it. And Barcelona eventually get boring to watch with that style of play as well. It did just start to become a bit tedious. As you say, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and you're certainly not suffering for fans. Fans aren't getting bored by watching that kind of stuff. You get massive TV viewing figures, massive audiences, massive crowds in the stadium. So I mean, I think it's definitely good to watch. Arsenal, as you say, are probably the most direct of the lot, but they're showing that it's working. It's not that they're winning games 1-0. They're almost 2 goals a game. They're certainly not conceding. That they're conceding 1 goal every 3. Which is fantastic for if you're an Arsenal fan. But I mean, it is good,
Yeah, I mean, I would have said when you look at Arsenal from say last year, 24-25, I think they conceded something like 30 something. It was less than 35 goals for the whole season, which is pretty phenomenal stuff. But I mean, they've always been considered a team that's been built on a back 4. But it's more the power game that they've got now, whereas they have got the strength all the way through the team. Alan Shearer was speaking about when he used to play against the old back 4. He says basically 4 of them would have a free kick at you. So he said at least before one of them got booked. He says he dreaded playing against them because he knew what was coming. So they're very strong at back, but they've still got that strength. They were the same in midfield when they had like Vieira in midfield. So, and it's all very well playing the Barcelona type Guardiola tap, but as you said, it gets boring. I mean, it's like sitting looking at a pint for 20 minutes before you drink it. I mean, there's not a lot of fun in that. So
a lovely analogy there, but no, I take your point for sure. It definitely is.
It's all very well to look at, and sometimes the training sessions, whatever, you see all that, but when it goes on the park, you think, oh my God, just get the ball forward. And when a centre half has had the most amount of touches in a game, that tells you there's something wrong with the game.
Yeah, and it's not that necessarily it's not the right way to win football matches if you've got the right players in the team, but don't forget Barcelona had Xavi and Iniesta, the 2 of the probably most talented central midfielders of the last 30 years. But if you haven't got those players, it's boring and ineffective. And I think now teams have realised that when you get a corner, how many years did we see? Probably 30% of corners were played short. And now teams are getting in the box because it's a chance of scoring a goal. Same with the long throws. If you've got somebody who can throw it to the 6-yard line, get it in there. Get the second balls. Get a chance of scoring a goal. And I think that's been neglected for trying to create a perfect style. Football has a bit of chaos in it. It's unpredictable. It's not it's not a board game. It's not chess. There's chaos and there's rebounds and deflections and all sorts that can work in your favour. And the more you get the ball in the box, the more likely you are to score, in my opinion.
Yep.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, talking again about Arsenal, you mentioned the goalkeeper at Manchester United, obviously in the shape of David Raya. Arsenal have got a top quality goalkeeper. You look again at the back four, they're strong at the back. Declan Rice, you were talking about him earlier on, Tom, in terms of what he offers as a defensive midfield. And I mean, you've got a dearth of forwards, from Gyökeres, the new signing. Eze, who I think is hardly featured. You've got Sacco, obviously Odegaard as well, and Martinelli chips in with a few too, and Marino, he get goals in midweek as well in Europe, so they definitely have a decent squad. I think they probably have the strongest squad in the Premier League. So if Arsenal don't go on to do something this season, they really have had a missed opportunity this season.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
I think I completely agree. I think Arteta needs to win a trophy. I think they've won one this is his 5th season, I think, is it? I think Arsenal have done well to stick with him, and you can see that's obviously starting to play out. As you said, they've got stronger and stronger. But at some point, they need to put something on the board. And they're going to have to win something this year, something major as well, not the FA Cup. I think the FA Cup's still a major trophy, but they need to win the Premier League or the Champions League.
Yeah, 100%. That to me, that's the only thing that. I mean, at the end of the day, Arsenal stuck with Wenger for long enough. After going so many trophyless seasons, I don't think they'd want to endure that again, and they want a return. And they definitely look as if they've gone for it this season with some of their buys. Bringing in Gyökeres, bringing in Eze. I mean, you look at the squad of players they still have in their book. You've still got Jesus in their books as well. So I mean, they have a
Funny you should say that. I'd forgotten about that, and I saw it the other day when I was doing a bit of hunting about stuff, and I saw he was still in the squad, and I totally forgot he was there.
Yeah. I mean, that's it, exactly. I mean, they've got Kepa, who was on loan last season at Bournemouth. He's obviously their second string keeper, but since they get rid of the guy that got for Southampton, I forgot his blooming name. Ramsdale, yeah. Who I think was hard done by, but then again, when you see what you've replaced him with in the shape of David Raya, that they're strengthened there as well. So Arteta's shown he's not scared to make changes, and if you think it's going to be better for the side, he's not feared to drop you either. So there's no loyalty there, in terms of having to stick with players or, guys that they spent big money on. I mean, they spent a lot of money on Ramsdale to bring him in from Southampton. And he's showing that he's not scared to drop players if it's going to improve the side. And that, to me, is making a good manager.
I think Arsenal had to change their attitude towards buying and selling players. They were running a very successful business, for want of a better word. For many a season under Wenger, I think if you looked at the balance sheet, they were looking very, very healthy, but the trophy cabinet was empty. So then, obviously, they went out and spent big money. The money they paid for Rice, which, well, this season doesn't actually look that bad now. But and it's been a very good investment. Don't get me wrong. I thought, my God, that's a hell of a lot of money for that. What I classed was a mediocre midfield player, but he's certainly proven me wrong to be far better than, and he's improved season on season.
Yeah.
So, he's been a great signing for them, and a few of the other ones they've made, and they've managed to keep the players. I mean, a few seasons ago, they probably would have lost the winger because somebody would have just come in and swooped him, but he knows that they're obviously paying him well, and they have got desires to go on and win major trophies, not just, as I said earlier, a League Cup or a FA Cup, great to have, but the measure of these clubs is in Europe, and I think that's where that's where they want to be, and that's the big stage is where they want to be seen. So, let's look at that's as you said earlier. There's a lot of teams who are really okay, they're maybe 6-8 points behind, but the rest of them are stacking up, and it's looking for an interesting season rather than just 3 or 4 teams being in it.
Yeah, I mean, 10 games in, it certainly is. It is enough there to hold the interest, that's for sure. And as you say, Ian,
Correct.
the Kronkers look as if they're spending money. You know, they're no fear to do it. I've saw what they did at the Rams a number of years ago, where they weren't scared to go out and bring in players. You know, in terms of obviously American football. You know, so if they're doing it in soccer, you know, they can go ahead and do it. And yeah, good luck to Arsenal. You know, I think they're long overdue to really challenge for the Premier League. Sorry, Tom, you know, but as I say, I think they are due to go in and challenge, you know. I mean, they really are. And they've got that bit of a gap at the top. 6 points probably isn't a great deal. You know, I mean, Liverpool were 6 points clear from 5 games into the season, you know, so it can turn quickly. But no, I mean, fair play to them, you know. So that's it. Tom, what would be a successful season for Manchester United then?
Well, I think the fact we haven't got Europe is I think we've got to finish top 6. You know, I think top 4 would be a really successful season, but I think I would take 5th or 6th. I really would. I think you look at last season was so bad; it looked so far away from being positive. I mean, you know, we went into the start of this season, and everyone thought the manager was going to be the first to be sacked. In the league, he's just won Manager of the Month today. I see because we won 3-3 last month. Bruno won Player of the Month. You know, so that's a mile away from where we were last season. So let's not get ahead of ourselves, because everyone suddenly thinks then United should be challenging for the title. I don't think that's going to happen this season. I would take 6th now and take 6th. Add a couple of players in the right positions in the summer, and have a go at it next season.
Yeah, it's all about consolidation at Manchester United. Again.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say to Tom there, do you think the manager knows what his best side is out of the squad he's got?
I think he knows what his best side is now. I think it's probably only in the last 2 or 3 weeks, though, Ian. I do. I think the team's pretty settled now. But I think I think he would say we definitely need a midfielder, as you said right at the top of the show. We still need a top quality ball player who can cover the park in midfield. Like I say, you look at Rice. If you jettisoned Rice into our team in place of Casemiro, what difference does that make? I think we look like a completely different team. And probably somebody at left centre back. You know, Shaw's been playing there this season and doing well. I think we probably need a long-term player there. You know, he's had his injury issues, and that's one thing I would say. I don't know if it's the manager or something else that the club has changed, but we seem to have really got a much better injury record. The last 2 seasons have been plagued by players niggling injuries, and this year I think we're bottom of the injury table, which has helped us because we can pick a consistent team. That might be a bit. That might be not playing in Europe, of course. That might be helping.
That's the way to say it. Less games played. Yeah.
Yeah, that's got
to help. And out the League Cup as well.
Yeah, that's got to help. But I think the team's pretty settled now. I think the team's pretty settled. I think there might be, you know, the big games like Liverpool away where he sticks Cunha up top, and brings in Mount for an extra midfielder, as it were, and rather than Sesko playing. I think that will probably still happen in those. It might happen tomorrow actually in the game at Spurs. But no, I think the first 11's pretty much there now.
You talking about midfielders? Would you take McTominay back?
Of course, because he's an academy player, and United fans love academy players, as most football fans do. You know, I think if you ask most proper Man United fans, the stat they're most proud of is the academy stat, that there's been an academy player in the matchday squad for something like 60 or 70 years now. They've never missed one. That's probably the stat most Man U fans are proudest of. So yeah, I'd have him back in a heartbeat. I actually think in the system Amorim plays, he's playing one of the 2 roles behind the centre forward.
Yeah, indeed. So I mean, he certainly has changed his style of play slightly since he's gone to Napoli. You know, in terms of getting into the box, is certainly a lot more than what he did at United. You know, but I don't see why he couldn't become that midfield player who box to box. I think he has that. I think he has that in his game. Where he can actually shore up the midfield, but he can also get forward. A bit like Roy Keane. In terms of Keane could obviously put the boot in, but if he was needed to get into the box late, he could do that. And I think McTominay's been doing that at Napoli. Maybe not so much this season. He's been found out a bit, but certainly last season, that was his style. He was late getting into the box, and obviously scored a bag full of goals.
Yeah, I think his role's changed a bit this season with De Bruyne coming in.
Yeah,
and he seems to have gone out sort of coming in off the left, sort of like almost like an old-fashioned inside forward, I suppose, like just inside left, as it were. So I do think that's probably an impact. I actually think he's better higher up the park. I do. I really think he's a threat. I mean, I used to bewilder me when I seen him playing centre back for Scotland. I could never understand that because I thought he was one of your better goal threats because Scotland centre forwards aren't exactly
no.
Alan Shearer and Ronaldo, are they? So I always thought playing him centre back when I actually always saw him as quite a good goal threat at United was always surprised me. But yeah, I would have McTominay back. I would definitely have him back at United.
Mind you, you have to look at what Scotland's centre halves are like.
Aye, well, there is that, yeah.
Dennis would say if I usually want to put him off his game on a Sunday, I start speaking about the centre halves, and he goes on about Hansley, and I'm thinking, the poor man's away to get it again. Yeah, so he just goes on a rant about him.
Yeah. It's one way to distract them, that's for sure. I certainly missed these rants tonight, that's for sure. Anyway, Tom, you mentioned Scotland and bringing it back north of the border. Ian, obviously Aberdeen have started to pick up a wee bit, in terms of getting some results. At least they're off the foot of the table and they have managed to get a couple of goals as well. Do you see them building on that for the season, or do you really think you're going to finish bottom six and pretty much adrift at anything at all?
I think the next 3 or 4 weeks up till Christmas will be that's going to set us up for the following year. And if we're not in the top 6 by Christmas time, I know it's a big ask, but I think it's going to be a real struggle. The fans that go there every week, in fact, I was two of my friends, they went away over at Cyprus this week. I mean, they were in Greece. They said, "Oh my God, it was just diabolical." It was the worst result in Europe.
Yeah,
the whole of Europe. Aberdeen 6-0, but yet they go and play Larnaca, and they were supposed to be one of the top teams in the group, and they were 0-0. And they've gotten a couple. Okay, they got a good result against Dundee, but again, it's just no consistency at all. And the back four struggle a wee bit, but I don't know the name of the guy, but the chap they brought in from Italy apparently looks as if he could be a really good buy. So it was only my dad was speaking about it today when he was round, and I was totally unaware of it. But I would say the jury's out. Even the loyal supporters, in fact, I'm meeting one of them on Wednesday. Craig, he's been a season ticket holder there for years, and he was really bouncing last year at one stage, but now he says, "Oh God, we seem to have returned to that we can't score." Right, and and that's consistent across. There's multi-million-pound clubs that cannot get a decent striker, and the chances of us picking one up and keeping one is probably quite low anyway. So, but the supporters seem they're still behind them, and they haven't waned, and the numbers are not going down yet. But and obviously the chairman's still got faith in the manager. I would say certainly up until Christmas. And I don't know. You just can't constantly be changing managers. There's got to be something else fundamentally wrong at the club. It's just not the manager every time.
Yeah, that's the thing. It is. Sorry, on you go.
But I was going to say, but we've brought in so many Scandinavian players into the squad that it's going to take a lot to then change that around. Because they've brought in a lot of young lads, and I think the idea is you bring them in young, the usual thing. You nurture them, bring them on, and then sell them on for a lot of cash. That has yet to happen. So, and the players, I think they're struggling a wee bit just with the Scottish game. I think, but from what I've seen, technically they look good players. I think it's just a case of building their confidence.
Yeah, indeed. But that's going to take time, as you say, But
it certainly is.
I mean, when you look at obviously the table in Europe, you get Aberdeen sitting fourth bottom in a table of 36, but you've also got AZ Alkmaar down there too, who obviously lost the other night. So it's one of these things. Yeah, I mean, that was Lannica's first drop points. They still haven't conceded a goal in Europe, but that was the first drop point. But I mean, when you're talking about Cypriot sides, when some of these teams you're looking at that, you barely know where they're from. Samsunspor sounds obviously Turkish, but here, NK, who? And I mean, that's it. It's one of these things, that UEFA Conference League, that there's not a great deal in there. I mean, Shakhtar Donetsk as well, who obviously Aberdeen, that was the kind of thing that turned Aberdeen's season around almost, was the great performance against Shakhtar Donetsk. Ultimately, they still lost the game, but that to me seemed to turn their season around a wee bit, So you hope maybe just that Larnaca thing, getting a draw against them over in Cyprus can actually help turn things around a wee bit more and maybe catapult you onto a wee bit better form and get you up that league table.
Yeah, I mean, we thought the same when they had a good result. I mean, I can't remember which order it came. Did Celtic lose to Dundee and then Aberdeen beat Dundee, or the other way around? I don't know, but so both Dundee and ourselves.
No, I think you beat Dundee first of all.
Yeah, and then they go on to get a good result against Celtic. So I mean, you wouldn't have predicted that in a million years. So we're just inconsistent, and I think all the teams in the bottom six are really inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole table's inconsistent. Beyond maybe Hearts, even Celtic obviously inconsistent. Rangers most definitely inconsistent. But I mean, Kilmarnock, we were talking a couple of weeks ago on the show about how well Stuart Kettlewell was doing because Kilmarnock were sitting fourth. They're 10th now. They're sitting below Aberdeen. So I mean, we were talking earlier on about how tight the English Premier League is. The Scottish Premier League, when you take out Hearts and take out Celtic, it's very much 1 point separating something like 6 or 7 sides. It really, really is tight up there. But again, as we keep saying, Scottish football needs a strong Aberdeen. It needs a strong Dundee United. We need a strong Hearts and Hibs. We're getting a strong Hearts. So the more sides that can push up into that top six, and certainly I hope Aberdeen can turn things around a wee bit, and get that bit of consistency, get away from that dire beginning of season for them, as we push into, as you say, towards Christmas, and start seeing some results and take a wee bit of pressure off the manager, because I think the press will be on his back. The supporters are maybe still there, but the press are almost wondering when he's going to be sacked, or when Aberdeen are going to make their perennial change at manager, when things don't start to work out. And as Tom can testify to at Manchester United, Amaron was under so much pressure, but you stuck with him. Rightly so, because I mean, 6 months is no time at all for a manager, and he did get you a European final. But you stuck with him, Tom, and you're reaping these benefits this season.
Yeah, I'd probably differ from your average fan, and I would give managers more time. I look at the English Premier League. How many clubs who've sacked the manager in the last year have got better?
Yeah,
maybe Everton with Moyes. Other than that, West Ham, no. Nottingham Forest, no. Wolves, no. They don't improve for sacking the manager. Whereas we've just talked about Arsenal, who have been patient with Arteta, and they're starting to look like the best team in the league. And I think you have to. I think with Amarin, my point with that from the start was he was coming in at such a low ebb where I think everyone knew there was so much wrong. You talked about the transfer policy, Cammy, which was a huge thing for me. You look at the players, it's not just the fact they've come from the Premier League. I think they've signed players that want to play for United because they want to play for United rather than because we're paying them $300,000 a week. The rumours are Cunha and Mbeumo are both on $100,000 a week. Whereas
my heart bleeds.
Yeah, well, no, it's obviously it's still wouldn't be bad to have, would it? No, but I think
we'll put the hat round for them.
The previous model has been to put 300,000 on the table and sign who the biggest name that will come for that money, and that hasn't worked. So I think for me, sticking with the manager is an interesting one. I'd be lying if I said I know everything about the Scottish Premier League. I do follow it fairly closely. My stepdad's a big Rangers fan, was a season ticket holder for a lot of years, so he's been going through a bit of pain this year, and we have a lot of conversations. But it's interesting with Aberdeen because obviously it's such a good start last season, Ian, that they were sort of the heart of last season at the start of the season. And
I mean, they had, I think it was 10 games, they had 30 points. They won their first 10 games. And you thought, oh my God, where's this coming from? Because it was literally the same players that was there the year before. And then they just went off the boil. But there was one season that happened with the previous manager. That he went about 8 or 9 games in a row, and then they went off the boil again. Now, if it hadn't been for the really good start last season, Aberdeen would have really been in stick, because the second half of the season they were woeful, but yet managed to win the games necessary to get themselves the Scottish Cup. So I mean, it was the first time in 30 odd years they'd won that. So I mean, it's for the town itself, the city, it was great. But there's not a lot of money up here when it comes to football. There are lots of, you say, there's loads of oil companies and everything. They will not get involved in football. Refuse to. They'll get involved at grassroots level. Absolutely no problem at all. Like some BP and that invested. They had a tournament for all the up and coming youngsters. Anything to do with kids, great. But it's for actually supporting a side itself. None of the oil companies will have anything to do with it. So sponsorship is a little bit of an issue for Dave Cormack, and trying to bring in major companies to invest. We're a wee bit out the road up in the northeast. Trying to attract players to come up sometimes is a problem. So that's why they've gone for youth. They had a great youth policy back in the 80s, early 90s, and with a new training facility that Dave Cormack built just in the outskirts of Aberdeen. It's very good. I'm not saying it's by far not the best, but it's certainly a very, very good training facility that they have. So, and there's busloads of kids in and out of there. So they are trying their best to get local talent going, but as we all know, that takes a long time.
Yeah.
And there is the odd team that manages to win with a team of kids. So I start to say that
not for a while.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time since that happened.
And that you've got to, if you're going to do that, you've got to have patience with your manager, because it won't help the junior players or youth team players coming into the team chopping and changing managers. That consistency is important. So, what is the view? What is the view with Hearts up there? Is it good for Scottish football that there's a new name at the top of the league? Is it, obviously Celtic and Rangers? I read a bit of the fallout after last night. It was quite negative around both performances. I think Rangers were up against a pretty good team in Roma. I've seen a little bit of them this season, and they look a pretty good team, to be fair. But yeah, what is the overall feeling?
Certainly up in the northeast, it's great. It's great to see, because Edinburgh is it's a huge city, and they have two sides that both deserve. They don't get this big a support, anything close to what their rivals do over in Glasgow, but they are well supported, and the sides themselves. In Edinburgh itself, rugby tends to be the more popular sport with the locals, but in the years gone by, Hearts and Hibs have both been great sides, and hopefully it can only be a good thing that these sides are coming through.
Yeah, I mean, there's talk, Tom, about Hearts splitting the big two, and coming between Rangers and Celtic. We had Graham Durty, who's obviously on our WhatsApp group, He was on a couple of weeks ago prior to the Hearts Celtic game, and I've never seen him so excited as what he's been, what it was prior to that game. In terms and going into it with a lot of confidence. I remember Ian last season against when you came up against Celtic, there was always that bit of trepidation, because obviously you were going in with the 10-game unbeaten run and things like that, But talking to Graham a couple of weeks ago, the excitement, he just the confidence, as I say, going into that game, he felt that Hearts were going to, and by the way, we all did that night, and pretty much we all picked the result, picked the score as well, or picked the outcome and picked the score, and yeah, I mean, I think it can only be good for Scottish football the longer Hearts can stay at the top of that table, and there's nothing to indicate, by the way, that that's going to drop off, other than the fact that they can't beat St Mirren. There's nothing to indicate that that's going to drop off, so
well,
they're 6-8 points clear at the top just now, and as I say, long may it continue.
Yeah, I saw the a bit of the Celtic game because I obviously I was keeping an eye on it, and I thought I hope they don't go into this game and play it cautious and think a point's a really good result, because there was a real opportunity to put the hammer down, and they obviously did, and but then to drop the points against St Mirren, they must have been kicking themselves, because that's the cardinal sin, isn't it? You come out with a great result and then give those points you've gained away a week later. But no, it's interesting. And is there a feeling that, because obviously down here it's been very well documented about Tony Bloom's approach with Brighton. I know he's not got a controlling stake in Hearts, but he's got quite a good sized stake. Mm-hmm. Is that something you can recognise, that sort of Brighton model? Is that something they're starting to work with?
It's definitely reaping dividends for them, and you can see what it's doing in terms of the players they're bringing in, because they're doing the Brighton model. They're bringing in players for not a great deal of money, and obviously, if ultimately they decide to move them on, but at the moment, why you want to leave a side why are you going to want to ship on players who you're top of the league? It's different down there where you need the money to survive in the Premier League consistently, so you're needing that 60-70 million pound transfer on a regular basis. They've done with selling them on to Chelsea and wherever else, So I think on a much smaller scale, we're starting to see a bit of the benefits already of the analytical side. And Graham again spoke really well about that a couple of weeks ago, what he's seeing in some of the players that they've brought in, players that very, very few people had heard of.
Yep.
And they're not spending. I mean, Hearts have brought in something like 10 or 11 players, and I think one of them cost them a decent amount of money, but they're actually still in positive from transfer fees, so they've actually still spent less than they brought in, and I think that's a big thing in terms of the fact that they've done all that and they're still sitting top of the table and they're 6 points clear and they've already beaten both halves of the Old Firm and Aberdeen this season as well, so it definitely augurs well for the season, and the longer they can stay up there, Ian, I think we'll all be happy.
Yeah, I mean, Derek McInnes himself, Aberdeen, he put down, I've said this before, he put down some very strong views on training facilities and progressive youth development and all the things. And so for the first X amount of years, he really did sort of make sure that the training facility and everything was good for the players, and the pitch was relayed and lots of things he'd asked for. And then they went through a lull, and then obviously he then moved on because him and Cormac didn't get on, so there was only going to be one loser there. I felt his head went down a wee bit after that, or maybe just prior to that, and it never really, even the Kilmarnock job, I don't think he came back up. But I think he's been rejuvenated by what's happening at Hearts. And I do wish him all the success. Dennis will probably brain me tomorrow for saying that, but I do. I wish him every success, because I believe that he is a good coach, and he did. He made sure he had good people around about him. He had Tony. Oh God, what's his name? It was at Dundee.
Tony Dock.
Forget the coach. Yes.
Tony Docherty.
And Docherty, and I think he the two of them did really well at Pretoria, but obviously that ended up, that fell by the wayside, as I say, when you've got problems with between the manager and the chairman. You only got to look at Celtic to see what happens there. There's only one loser, and but I think he's got the board. I think everybody's behind him, and he's got a team that are playing extremely well. They're playing for each other. And just what you were saying, there was a lad that's playing left back for them now, Harry Milne, who was playing Highland League a few years ago for Cove Rangers. So he wanted full-time football. They couldn't give it. He took the gamble of going to Partick, and then Partick saw the potential in him, and then obviously Hearts stepped in and got him, and he fits into that team really well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm within the club itself. So yep,
good.
It can only be a good thing for football.
Yeah, and looking at you talked there, you mentioned Cove Rangers, Ian. Obviously struggling a bit this season. Last season you kind of got to didn't kind of get to the playoffs. You got the playoffs last season. This season has definitely been a bit of a struggle, and Paul Hartley it doesn't seem to be going for him this year.
No, sorry, 2 seconds.
I hear the dog in the background.
So a wee riot going on down the stairs of the dog. Yes, so this is my dad's favourite subject. Is Paul Hartley. He's had a good time. He went away. He came back. Now they've gone full time. The squad is quite small. I think we're sitting
full
at
time
the moment. Yeah, we've gone full time, and we have, I think, it's either 2 or 3 part-time players left who will be phased out probably in the next season. I think that'll be the end of them. But there's a lot of youth been brought in. Players that have moved on. The guys that are at Peterhead now, they were that are running Peterhead were ex-Cove Rangers, but they dotted between the two teams anyway. So they played for Peterhead before, came to Cove, back to Peterhead, and they've done very well. But the full-time players we now have in there are they're really young players. But I mean, and I'm sure they'll do well eventually. But the problem was we had 4 what we'd call experienced players, really good top-class players. They've been out a good part of the season. I don't know. I mean, that's like 4, maybe 6 weeks that a couple of them have been out. But so the heart of the team is not there when it comes to experience. And I think tomorrow, he's going up to Inverness with 13 outfield players. That's all he's got. So it's a struggle. So I do feel for him to a certain extent, because his hands are tied a little bit with the team he's got, and a lot of the players are they're not much older than 2021, and they're looking for a bit of leadership on the park, which unfortunately they're on the treatment table. Paul Hartley himself, he's a little bit like Marmite. I think there's some of the supporters really like him, others don't. But the fact of the matter is, if you go back to the year they came up from the Highland League, they were getting somewhere between 1,000 and 1,300 supporters at their games. We're down to about 300 or 400. And now we're going full time. I don't know what's going to, but how much longer the chairman will give him, I'm not really sure. I mean, I think it's unfair, just what Tom was hitting on earlier. Yeah, you've got to maybe try and ride out a little bit of bad luck when it comes to players on the injury list, and give the manager that little bit of time to get his full team back. And let's see what happens with his full team. But I was saying to Dad today that if we haven't turned anything around by Christmas, Montrose are not that far in front of us. We've got Kelty Hearts are just a couple of points, and then I think it's about 4 points or 6 points to Montrose. But even still, you still need to get yourself up there, and it's not a direction the club want to be going in. And
especially not if you're full time. I mean, if you're full time, I was speaking to a Dundee supporter today, and it's him who's actually had said to me about Hartley, and you're saying he's Marmite. Dundee supporters, a lot of them, consider Hartley the best manager they've had in the last 20 years because he could spot a player. He brought a lot of young players through. Just to what you're saying, obviously, up at Cove, he brought like Scott Bain through, he brought several other outfield players through as well. To hear that Cove Rangers are sitting isolated at the foot of our third division in Scotland, and that they're full time. That caught me. Obviously, I wasn't aware of the fact that you're full time. What's the idea behind that? Why, when you're bringing in 300 or 400 fans, did somebody up there take a decision to think that going full time football is a good idea?
That was a decision that was made, I think, about as soon as they come up, as soon as they actually got promotion. There was a 5-year plan put in place. The first 5 years was put in place, which was to be in the championship and get themselves in the championship in that 5 years and be full time. Now they achieved that, which was they did get to the championship. They actually got there. I think it was 2 years earlier than they intended being there. So then they automatically, and they saw straight away that when they got the championship, they came straight back down because they didn't have the players. They still had a lot of the Highland League players who were very good. Don't get me wrong, but they were maybe just a league too many for them. And they went down and they took some quite heavy defeats. But they thought, well, the only way for this to happen now is to go full time. But there's a lot of us been discussing it, and we actually think that some of the better players or the best players that are playing in that lower leagues are actually part-time players. And the only full-time players that were available were very young. So you've got to really put a plan together for maybe 3 or 4 years to bring these young players on. And I don't know if the money's there to do that, especially if we drop down another league.
Yeah,
but we need to get fans back in.
That smacks of almost putting the cart before the horse, for sure. And I don't understand that one at all. But especially where it's not working, you can't go with a squad of 13 players up to Inverness and expect to get anything up there against an Inverness side who, again, we talk about resurgent teams in Scotland, who have put themselves up by the bootstraps and certainly look to be favourites to get out of that league. And unfortunately, the only way that looks as though Cove are getting out of that league is actually through coming down into the fourth tier of Scottish football, which is not what you want to be, especially if you're full time in a league of part-time sides.
Yeah, and I think we've got the same problem as we discussed earlier, is putting the ball in the net. I think there's been quite a few games that we've lost. We've lost them just by the odd goal. A loss it is. But we've controlled parts of the game and just can't put the ball in the net. I'm afraid.
Difficult game for you tomorrow, that's for sure. No.
Yes, I mean, we've got a couple of doings. Yeah, we got a couple of doings from them last year. And then we had one good result against them. But I wouldn't be surprised if we got something out of the game. But by the same token, I wouldn't be surprised. I said that initially till I found out today that they only had 13 outfield players. So
you can't expect to get anything from that at all. Big difference, obviously, for Manchester United going down to Spurs tomorrow, Tom, So I think you'll be taking a full squad down there. You're not going to be sitting there with 13 outfield players, that's for sure, going down to White Hart Lane, are you? Tom? No, I think Tom's frozen. So that's Tom's away. He's had enough.
I know,
you can't believe it. The Cove Rangers are full time as well. Aye, must have been the Cove Rangers.
It's a state of shock. I know.
I was just about to bring things to an end. I'll still do that anyway, and I'll give Tom a wee message, obviously, to let him know what the score is. But thank you very much, Ian, for obviously talking their Cove Rangers and giving us an insight. And it's a surprising insight, certainly, that you're full time up there. There's Tom back now, so hang on a minute. We'll bring him in to say cheerio. I was just saying there before you disappeared, you're not going to be taking a squad of 13 players down to White Hart Lane tomorrow.
No, that won't be the case. I think it just shows the difference. And even my local club here, Carlisle, are in the conference now, of the National League as it is now. And even the squad size they have at that fifth tier of English football is still huge. And the money invested in the playing squad is significant. And it just shows the sort of the challenges that are faced by those lower league Scottish clubs. As you know, Cammy at work, and Ian Dennis has probably spoken to you about. We sponsor Gretna. It's where our company started, local to us here. Obviously, a bit of a real story from 20 years ago in Scottish football. A Phoenix club that came out of nothing, that has become a real community club, and very much what you're saying, Ian, focused on youth development and young players in the local area, and everything. I think they've got every age group now, from under sevens all the way up to full side.
That's great to hear.
You see the challenges they have to face, and it's difficult. And you need a bit of luck as well, I think, along the way. You do.
Yeah, you do indeed. You do.
How injured is not going to help.
No. But anyway, that's the thing, and we still need to manage. Dennis and I need to get down there and get to a game. That's for sure. As I say, I've got
we'll
a couple of pals. I've got a couple of pals who stay down there. Actually, one of them is a Carlisle fan, although he's 2.5 hours to get to a game because he stays in Barrow, and he's on the group chat. So he's actually he's on the chat. He's been on the show a couple of times. You'll have seen him. So I was down there a few weeks ago. So we need to get down again, down that direction, and get a game sorted out for sure. But I think that brings us to an end tonight. One of our longest pods for quite a while. It just shows we had so much to talk about in terms of, obviously, English Premier League and a wee bit of grassroots stuff up here in Scotland. So, Ian, thank you very much for taking the time out. I'm sure you'll enjoy the golf course tomorrow with Dennis. Hopefully, he's got his clothes back on, obviously, after being a stripper out in Kilmacombe for all the women, But that's the last thing you want to... Yeah, you don't want to be putting your ball on that tee, that's for sure. And Tom, as always, thanks for giving us your insight into obviously what's happening at Manchester United, what's happening in the rest of the Premier League, and obviously a wee bit of chat about Scottish football as well. So won't be long before we get you on again. Hopefully we can maybe get Steve on at the same time, because I'm looking to try and get a wee wager going with you, Pierre, to see which of the two sides is going to finish higher in the league.
He's running scared. That's why he's not come on tonight. Obviously, you wait till I get hold of him on Monday. You wait till I get hold of him on Monday. Yeah. So,
indeed.
Yeah, if they beat us, he'll be the first person to phone me on Monday morning. You watch.
Indeed. Well, as I say, I won't be here next week. It'll be Dennis will be on. I think Bob Smith is going to be on with Dennis, and a couple of other guys as well. But as I say, I won't be here. I'm going to be getting ready to head to Madrid. I've just noticed my tickets have just come through an email there, so I'm going to go and download them and get them sorted for next week. So thank you very much. As I say, go ahead, like, subscribe to the Football Pitch. It does help us out a lot. Live on YouTube most Fridays, or certainly every Friday generally, or certainly once a week. Next, I think in a couple of weeks' time, we'll probably do a Thursday show, but that's where we are just now. So go ahead, like, subscribe.
I think we've lost him.
No.
He needs to put another shilling in the meter.
Yeah, the meter's run out.